Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to a Unity 3D tutorial. Finally, we're getting back into it, and the reason we're getting back into it is because most of the comments of the errors that you guys are getting are very simple, and I'm not going to respond to those comments because you should be able to figure that stuff out for yourself. It's really easy to fix, so hopefully these kind of get a better understanding of why the problems you are having are so basic, and you should be able to figure it out yourself. So I'm going to talk very slowly, please bear with me. It is a very long tutorial for something very basic, so if you already know how to do this type of stuff, click away. I don't want to waste your time, but we'll get straight into it and hopefully you guys enjoy. So the first thing we're going to learn today, and I'll try and keep this as short as possible because some of you guys already know this, is variables. Now we're going to be using a few variables to create a very basic health script, just as an example of how to use it and what they all do. So basically, before the void start function, that is by default, you want this little gap up just above it. We want to fill that up with our variables, or the variables that the script will be using. For example, we are going to put this script onto a player, and it's going to hold their statistics pretty much, right? So we can label this any way we kind of want, but the first one we're going to do today, variable wise, is called an int, right? Now an int, or I'm pretty sure it stands for integer, I'm not too sure, is basically a variable that holds whole numbers. Now if you don't know what a whole number is, well, it's like 6 or 7 or 8, right? A not so whole number would be 5 over 6, for example, which could be 0.2, or anything that is not a perfectly round number. So integer only holds the perfectly round numbers, so we go 6, 7, 8, all perfectly round. But first of all, we got to give every variable a name. So we start off by creating a variable. So we go int, so we want an int here, and we're going to name it, let's say health, for example. And then we want to set it by going space equals space, and then the number, of course, we want. So for this example, we're just going to go 10. So we have 10 health, right? And now that if we save the script, now it knows that health is now equal to 10, and we have a variable that we're holding data for, and so if we ever need to call it back, we can use the word health, right? Health is what links it back to it. So if we ever use, like in the start function, now the start function is called every time a script is run for the first time. It's the first thing that gets called before anything else. So if we said something like health equals 0, and then close it off with a semicolon, as we do for the variables as well, then that means the moment that the script starts, the health will be equal to 0, right? But if we want to, for example, say update that later, because of course we want to be attacked before our health goes down, then we're going to need to create other functions. But today we're not going to do that. We're just going to learn how to create specific, I guess, variables and what you'd use them for when you create your game, right? So for this example, we are not going to use health as an int. Why? Because in a MOBA, if we are creating a MOBA, if not, health could be used as an int, of course, we want to use something called a float, right? Now a float is actually a variable that holds decimal places, for example 0.3 or 5.7. Anything with a decimal place a float can hold. Now these are probably the only two that you're going to need. There are other variables that hold numbers, but for now keep it simple just so you guys can learn it, and if you ever need to know the very advanced stuff, basically it just helps things run a bit faster, but it really doesn't matter because float and int is all you need, are all that you will need when you're creating your games and stuff, and it's better to keep it simple. So we're going to call our float health. Oh, wait, we can't do that because we've already called our int health. No two can be called the same thing. So if I go up here and change our int to, let's say, max health. And why can we leave it at max health? Because I'm pretty certain that you guys do not want a max health with a decimal place. If you do, you want to use a float. But for now, our health is going to be held by a float, but our max health is going to be held by an int because it's going to be a nice round number. So now we want to set our health to, let's say, 0. We'll leave it at 0 for now. Now every time your player gets spawned, the script runs, and the start function is going to be there. So if we go down to start, then we want to type in something like health equals max health, right? It's perfect. There we go. And close it off with another semicolon there. Which means that when our script gets run, the health will be set to whatever max health is. Right now it's 10, but we can change that to any number. We'll say 100 as well, we can change that to. So now every time your health goes to max health. Now we want to find out how exactly we lose health, right? So obviously you're going to want to call a function. Now a function is basically something that starts with void. In C#, it's usually something that starts with a void. Again, keep it simple so that we understand 100%, right? So to create a function, which we are going to do right now, just a very simple function, and I'll go into depth later, but basically all you want to do is run void, give it a name, and make sure your name has a capital letter at the start. It makes it a hell of a lot easier. We're going to call this one take damage. Right? Now for these we use brackets to close them off, and then we got the little squiggly brackets, I'm not too sure what they're called, and you need to close one off on both sides, so down the bottom here and up the top here. So you got a segment in between which is closed by brackets that you can put a script in, right? So take damage. Now of course we're going to need to know how much damage we are taking, right? So usually when you call the void, we want to put within the brackets, and the reason why they're there is so that when you actually call a function like take damage, so if we write, for example, when the script starts, the health will become max health, right? But then we call take damage, close it off with brackets, and then semicolon. But then we're going to call this function here, and that's how we call a function. We just write the name, and then we put the brackets next to it and close it off with a semicolon, but we can only do that within a function. So we're calling a function within a function, a bit of inception here. So void start runs when your script starts. The health will be set to max health, so this health will go from 0 to 100, right? And then we're going to run the take damage script directly after that, which will run this little function right here, but there's nothing actually in that function. So if we ran the script right now, nothing would happen other than the health becoming max health. It will call this, but nothing happens when you call the take damage function, right? So if we want to, for example, negate a certain amount of health, then obviously we want to go health plus the number of damage that we're taking. Now of course our player doesn't know how much damage they're taking because we do not hold the stats for something like our attack, right? But if we go in here and we create another float, we'll say float, right? We create it within the brackets, we'll call it float DMG, alright? So there we go, we've got float DMG within this function. So every time the take damage function gets called, like here, every time we write take damage in brackets and semicolon, it's going to call this, but we need one variable, which is the amount of damage. So within these brackets here, you fill out the number. So we go 67, for example, right? So the moment that this is called, the moment that we call it here, it runs 67 amounts of damage, and then we go plus DMG, right? There we go. Close it off with a semicolon. I kind of made a mistake there. Health would be equal to health minus DMG. That's better, there we go. If you do not understand this, I will explain it 100%. So if we come at the top here, we have a few variables which hold our health. I'm pretty sure we understand that part. When we call a function like take damage, for example, which has this little 67 there, it's going to call this function over here. So every time take damage is called, it calls this. It runs this little segment, right? But in order to call the take damage, we actually need a number within the brackets to represent this number here, right? We need a damage amount. And the only way we can get a damage amount is by writing it as a float, because we've stated that a float needs to be called. So 67 technically is a float, but it reads it as 67.0, right? But we can just write 67 because float takes both whole numbers and not so whole numbers. So right now we got health equals health minus damage. So when it's called, the amount of damage will negate from the health, right? Because the actual health will equal our current health minus the amount of damage that we're taking. Right, so it's pretty simple, and I know I'm talking very slow, and I know you guys are probably like, duh, of course, that's how it works, but a lot of people do question why their scripts aren't working, and this is because they don't know the basic stuff, and they don't know how to actually implement the scripts I've created into their game. So this is a basic take damage script, health script, and stuff like that. And basically, that's all you need. That's all you need to run your game, in very, very basic terms, of course. Right, so if you really want to go in the extra step, of course, I guess you can make your health increase over time. Because health is set as a float, we can actually come up here into the update function. Now the update function is run every frame. Now that's basically every time a frame is called for your game to display, or to run a script, sorry, which is like 1,000 times a second pretty much. Not really, but you know, it can be set to that. We want our health to keep going up, but we want to stop it at 100. Right? We don't want it to go past 100, but we want it to keep growing. So the way we do that is we make an if function. Now the if function is basically if something, do something, right? So the way we kind of display that is go if, and then we go in brackets, then we go little squiggly line, space, enter, little squiggly line, and now we have this little segment in the middle to fiddle around with. But we don't know what gets run, because we don't know what it's actually asking. It's not asking anything. So what we want to do is if health is not, which is this button here, is not greater than max health, then it will start to call this little if segment here. Now, one thing that you probably need to know is, if function is, less than or equal to. Sorry about that. Yeah, I'm still a bit rigid on the whole thing. So we got health is less than or equal to max health, then it will start to increase it, because we don't want it, if it's greater than the max health, we don't want that, right? Less than. So now what we got to do is fill in the middle, the chunky bit, the nice cheese and cheddar of our script. Basically we want to say that we want to increase health plus, health equals health plus, and then we can give it a number. In fact, what we can actually do is come up here, create another float, right? And we'll call it health regen. There we go, health regen. And we're going to set that to 0.1, for example. And then we close it off with brackets. So that's pretty much it. Now we got to go here and we'll go plus health regen. There we go. And close it off with semicolon. And we're done. So basically every second it's increasing by a specific amount, which is set to 0.1. And we can tweak these so that they change over time. And also the reason why you put stuff like health regen up here is so that actually when your character is finished and you make like item purchases and stuff, the items can actually fiddle with these results. So you buy an item that increases health by 100, and then so this becomes like 200 or something like that, right? But right now we're just going to set it to 100, and then take damage function and all of that stuff is all pretty good there. So now if we save that and we actually go into Unity and we'll test this out. Alright, so we had a bit of an error there, and the reason is because we didn't put an F at the end of each of the floats. So if you have a float number, you have to put an F straight after your number, especially if it's a whole number. So because we got 67 here, not 67F, it doesn't actually register it as a float. So we have to put F at the end of every single number we have. So basically, I just did that and I've just saved it. So now if we go to our float function and we apply it to something in the scene, right? I'll just go and create a game object. We will create a little cube. Beautiful. And now we'll go and drag our script onto there and we'll see what we have. So it's running pretty well, but we can't actually see our numbers. Right, how do we fix that? Well, we go back into the script, right? And for everything you want to see in the GUI of Unity, we put a word public in front of it. There we go. And the moment that you set it to public, it means that it's available to be changed outside of the script itself. So everything without it, for example, this line here, the health regen, you can't change but with any other script. You have to change with this script, and it can only be used within here. But seeing as everyone needs to see certain things, we're going to set it all to public so that we can see all of this stuff there. Now we save it. Now when we minimize that and come back, just wait a few milliseconds, and there we go. Now it's all displayed here. Now I want you guys to focus on the health, because that's the one that's going to be changing. So when we play it, remember it's going to be set to max health, and then it's going to call our take damage script immediately. So it should be down a wee bit. Come on. There we go. And now it's slowly increasing based on the number in the health regen, right? So it's going to keep increasing until it gets to 100, and then it should stop. So we'll just wait. There we go. So it stopped a little bit over, right? And that's probably not a good thing, because we want it to be even less than 100, because some people can sort of glitch out the game or something and exploit the fact that it does go over. It may only give them 1, which doesn't matter too much. Well, the way we do this is actually, since it says health equals health, if health is less than or equal to the max health, we'll just take away the equal part, so that it will always be it should always be perfect. It may not work, it may work. But again, most of this stuff is trial and error, so it doesn't matter too much. Here, I'm going to set the health regen to 5, so we can speed that up a bit. And it still goes over 100.2994, so that's okay, it's not too bad. And when we round off the health to be displayed, it's going to come off as a perfect 100, unless it goes past that, in which case this needs to be set to something like 1. And if we run it again and set that to 1, it will actually go over quite a bit to 899. There we go. That's a little bit too much. And what we can do to actually fix that is go else. Right? Else basically means the opposite of what you've done. If health is not less than max health, then we can call this else script. And the way we do that is write else, squiggly line, space, enter, squiggly line, and then within here, what happens if the health is not less than the max health? So for example, if it's greater than the max health, well, we'll just set health to max health. So we go health equals max health, because if it goes too far over, we want it to go straight back to 100, so that's perfectly on 100. So we save that, minimize it, and press play. Great, now this should all work properly now. Even if we go 1, there we go, it gets set to 1. So brilliant, thank you guys for tuning in for this one, because that's pretty simple, and next I'll get up to displaying it, of course, and other stuff like that, but I'm really just trying to fill in time, because apparently you guys like these long tutorials for some reason. It shouldn't be that hard to understand this type of stuff, but I know some of you guys may or may not struggle, or may not know the basics, which is very, very important. And I know we've run over this before, but I'm just going to go over it again, so that hopefully I talk slow enough so that you guys understand the whole script right here, right? Because we don't want any sort of loose ends, or else you're not going to be prepared for the next one. So thank you guys for tuning in. I'm going to sign out now and play some outro music. Okay, I just need to shut up a bit more. If you guys think this is too basic, do leave a comment and I'll make some more advanced stuff, obviously. But I'll try and get one of these out a day, and hopefully we get through the whole thing. So thank you very much for watching. See ya.